Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health podcast, and my guest is Andrew. He's the CEO of Limelight Health, and the website itself is limelighthealth.com. So, Jason, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so putting what you do into the limelight, to make a bad joke, tell me about the company. What's the premise of it?
It's a great joke. I love it. In fact, people ask us often where we came up with the name, and the idea from our industry was that we keep you in the limelight, which also was an equally bad joke.
Okay.
Yeah, we started in 2014, and we're a SaaS-based enterprise platform that does underwriting, quoting, and proposals for the employee benefits industry. We actually started selling a multi-carrier product that did quoting a lot like you would if you're a consumer, if you went online and were trying to purchase health insurance like an e-health or something, but it was sold to brokers that are selling to employers. And we've since really shifted our focus. We've spent a lot of time focusing on helping insurance carriers that sell medical, dental, vision, life, disability, and voluntary products rate those products and get them out more efficiently through the distribution.
So what's the issues right now? I would think if you're a broker, you have access to like the latest and greatest and you can see everything out there, or is that not the case?
It's definitely not the case. It's what I tell people is we're still operating probably like around 1985 in the employee. We're known for having the lowest NPS scores of most industries, and it's mostly either manual processes, a lot of email, Excel. And then typically, a lot of our customers, we're coming in and replacing an existing legacy system, and a lot of times they're, 20, 30 years old or more.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah.
So what's the holdback? Is the industry just, gun shy back to technology, or why is it so antiquated?
It's a great question. We've done a lot of work, and I mean, when I say a lot of work, I'd like to do more. But we've had a number of initiatives with folks like the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, another one called LIMA, which is an industry organization that works in the benefit space, to come up with some standards for data transfers, much like you see in telecom or in banking and other verticals. But it's been very slow moving, and I don't know why those are all the reasons, but I think it's been a combination of not a lot of incentive. I think there's been some substantial changes, more recently, and we're seeing some pretty cool stuff takes place and some real shifts. Been, it's a little bit more slow going, but it's probably, been a blend of kind of not a lot of incentive to, making some changes or standards that might require, some work from a legislative standpoint to kind of enforce it or push the issue. And then just, I think some of the top carriers getting together and agreeing on some standards, but it's been quite a road. The folks have been working on it for a couple of decades.
Okay, so what do you see as some of the things that need to be improved in the system to make it better? Like, what are you working on?
Well, bigger picture. I mean, if I had all my dreams come true in this industry, it'd be having a set of standards. It'll probably take somebody to build out some middleware that can kind of pull it together. But what takes place is you've got 3, 4, 5 systems that each insurance carrier, brokerage firms, and others that are getting these products to employers in the U.S. Don't talk to each other. And so even having a standard set of kind of APIs, a standard set of protocols for how you would transfer data, it makes scaling and improving the front end UI or UX for different software a lot more difficult, where you end up spending a lot more time having to connect to different disparate systems than you would typically just innovating on what you think could really make a big difference on some of the more important things, right? Where you want to get into how do we take the data that we have and start learning on it, and how do you help systems to make better decisions around pricing and underwriting and product selection for all of us that are using those products, right? So I think that's kind of aspiration. What we'd love to see is kind of some kind of set there. But until it happens, there's a lot of cool stuff that's taking place. We've built our platform on, in the cloud. It's all API driven, and we're making lots of different connections, and then starting to use that data in a way to do some of those things. But it's always goes a little slower than I would like it to go.
Well, so what's an example that you've seen? Now that you're connecting this data and using APIs and everything, what's jumping out at you versus before? What are you able to see that other people can't see?
Well, I think there's some pretty exciting stuff taking place when it comes to how you rate certain products. So, for example, there's new data sets that we're starting to tap into, and we're working on a couple of prototypes where you can use those data sets to come up with pricing. So if you traditionally go and apply for a life insurance policy or a dental policy through a group, there's usually health questionnaires or long applications, and it takes a lot more time to both price those and just go through it. And no one enjoys that process. But we're working on some ways that you can take a number of data sets, connect to those via API, just with 2 or 3 pieces of information, and actually come up with very reasonable and actually predictive pricing, which one, hopefully what we'd expect is that you actually get better at pricing products, and 2, you're able to then begin to look at additional products that might be meaningful for somebody based on their life kind of stage. And I think thirdly, just a better user experience for everybody, as well as, kind of reducing the time it takes. And for carriers and for everyone who's thinking about it, it's you want to be able to get those products in front of you or I when they're meaningful and important at the right stage of life. And but that that's more aspirational. So we're in the early stages of it, but there's some pretty cool stuff that I think we'll start to see as we get more and more of this connected together.
So why can't this be used for individuals? You just want to focus on brokers, or do you think that it's not going to be helpful to individuals?
So a lot, I mean, you're in the individual market, you are, and that's kind of what everybody would love to get to, right? I mean, you're in the individual market, there's a lot more of this taking place, and a lot more of those standards are there, and particularly like in auto insurance and life insurance in the individual market. But yeah, we started our business in the group space. About half of or more of all of us in the United States get our employee benefits. So it's half the population through their group, through a company. The individual market is actually the smallest insured market when you think about health, dental, vision, life, disability, those product lines. So everybody would love to get to the end user, the consumer, if you will. And you're talking about, literally being on how do you get to that end user at an employer, right? And that's everybody's kind of dream. But we're kind of just building the pipes to help make that a better experience when you get there.
Okay. So where are you at with your product creation? Do you have it up and running where companies can look at this, or what's the story?
We do. So we've got a number of customers. We've been in production for about 2 years, and that's going really well. So right now we're raising another round of funding, and we're going to continue to expand the product, doing some of the things I'm talking about now. Kind of what we have is the framework, and still a lot of the things that I mentioned are being done by the user or manually, but we're starting to implement a lot more automation. We'll start doing, some of these are buzzwords because they're pretty early on, but we'll do a lot more machine learning, and then we'll start tapping into data sets. But we have customers that are using our product, and we're continuing to grow that. And that's really about helping with core system replacements, kind of the very basics. And a lot of these are often 2 or 3 year deployments because you're replacing big systems with national and sometimes international customers.
All right. So what's going to be some of the first functionality on the system, like the early stuff that you think will be most useful?
Yeah, so what we have today, we think is, again, it's a substantial improvement over kind of manual processes and some of the existing legacy systems. So, our product's very configurable. You can deploy it, depending on kind of what the workflow is. And it's everything from just intake of the data, which you'd use a census, which is going to have the demographics and the information on a group. So we're in the group market for employee benefits. So if there's a carrier that is selling dental, vision, life, disability, and those products, then we would help with everything from the census ingestion. Then once they have the information on the group, our platform will be configured to be able to help them arrive at a rate for those different product lines based on somebody designing a plan. So what's the coverage look like on the dental plan? How would you rate that? Our system does that. And then we have all the workflow. So a sales executive who's typically working with a broker and an underwriter at a carrier who's typically working with that sales executive to get their product out through that distribution. And we have all the workflow built in. And then typically we're connecting to another system like a Salesforce to help with their internal workflow. So all that is in production today and being used by a number of our customers. It sounds, I think, compared to probably some of the companies you talk to, pretty archaic. But again, that's how our industry is. So just having the workflow and some of those connections that allow for what I'd describe as a huge deal and a step up from just, again, kind of the manual stuff that's being done today.
So again, what are you able to see now that you have this stuff up and running? What is the landscape of available plans and all that look like? Is it is it super inefficient? Where there's a lot out there that people don't know about, or companies don't know about, or is the market really just kind of a mess and you're revealing that? Or what do you see?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's pretty early on. I mean, in terms of being able to take some of the data and the information we have to where you're going to see something meaningful from that standpoint. So where we've started and where our customers are using it would be, again, if we're thinking about it from an enterprise standpoint, which is really where we excel, then we take a big national carrier customer, and we're really helping them to have a lot more visibility into how they design their plans and then how they actually get them out more efficiently. So we're not seeing as much, bigger data that's meaningful that we could come back to you and say, here's things that we're seeing. But when it comes to one of our specific customers, they're picking up substantial efficiencies, being able to get greater visibility into their workflow and into the product creation and pricing. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I guess another way to ask it is, what surprises are out there for you? What do you see that's very unusual so far?
It's a great question. I think the thing that has been the most unusual, if I think back to when we started the company, and I've been in this industry for almost 20 years, is actually just how antiquated almost everyone's systems are. That may not be a huge revelation, but it's been a big deal. The more and more that we meet with our prospective customers and carriers, and we talk through kind of what systems they have in place and what their work looks like, I think it's been just surprising seeing how outdated that it really is, and how slow the industry moves. And so I think those two things have been the most surprising. And so I'm typically on a lot of panels or talking to a lot of folks, and particularly in InsurTech, there's all kinds of talk about some really cool stuff, and everything. A lot of the podcasts that are on that you're doing, right, are on things that are very future looking in terms of machine learning and AI, and and how we're going to be able to have a lot of automation. And I just look at it and go, we're several years away, I think, from seeing kind of meaningful stuff in the employee benefit space. Because it just of those two things, right? And again, there's some great progress and movement, but it's that's been the most surprising thing, I think.
Okay, so I guess in order to get to the machine learning and sexy, exciting stuff, you still got to do the basics.
You do, and we think that's kind of sexy. I know not everybody does, but we think you kind of lay the foundation and you some of those things there, and it leads to a lot more of the stuff that is really exciting or what everybody's kind of talking about, right?
All right. So, what's your rollout look like? Now and over the next year. Like, how many companies and how many things are going on?
Yeah. So we've just from a customer acquisition and a revenue standpoint, we doubled over the last couple of years on both fronts. We think that we'll do the same thing next year, which means that from an enterprise standpoint, we'll probably see about 6 more very large customers come on. And we're growing our team. We'll probably hire about 100 people over the next year, and we're at about 100 right now. So we'll double the size of our staff as well. So, we've been very excited about the way the market's responding to what we're doing. We try to really build a great relationship with our customers and continue to deliver our product. But that's kind of a general overview of where we see things going.
All right, very good. And what's the best way for companies and maybe people that work at companies to reach out, see if they can get your platform to interface with what they got going on at work?
Yeah, best way, you can go to our website and submit something there. You can email me, jason@limelighthealth.com. Happy to respond there, but we've got a sales team and our marketing team that are reaching out and very, very responsive if someone goes and takes a look at our website and then submits a request for a demo.
Okay. Well, very good. So it's the website again, just so we have it?
It's limelighthealth.com.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And, I guess there's still tons more work to be done. You're the beginning of it, but healthcare and all that needs it desperately. So it's good that you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate you having me on.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.